Captain Vrek of the galactic rescue vessel Steadfast Mercy stared at the blinking red distress beacon on his console and let out a long, tired sigh that rattled through all 4 of his breathing chambers. 23 years in rescue operations, and he could already tell this was going to be one of those calls. "Let me guess," he said, manipulating the controls with 2 of his 4 arms while the other 2 crossed over his chest. "Human vessel?" "Yes, sir," chirped Pilot Mara from her station, her feathers puffing up nervously. The Avine always looked like a nervous parakeet had been given a pilot's license and anxiety medication. "Cargo freighter. Registry says the Steady Prophet, carrying classified cargo from the outer belts. Crew manifest shows 1 human operator." "Human," Vrek repeated slowly, his mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement or despair, hard to tell with Krillians. "Singular. Alone in deep space with a ship full of cargo. Why do humans do that?" "Because they are statistically the most stubborn species in the known galaxy," offered Medic Torgan from the medical bay entrance, his slug-like body undulating forward with a sound like wet rubber on linoleum. "Also the most litigious. If we don't respond and he files a complaint, we'll be drowning in paperwork for cycle." Vrek grunted. The Glorp wasn't wrong. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 30 standard years, and they'd already figured out how to weaponize administrative processes. It was terrifying. "What's the status on life signs?" Vrek asked, already inputting coordinates for the jump. Mara's feathers flattened against her skull. "That's the weird part, sir. The automated distress beacon is active, but we're not picking up any biosigns at all. No humans, no anything. So he's dead." "Maybe. The ship's power is at 40% and holding steady. Life support is functional, but the signal has been broadcasting for 6 hours now with no follow-up communication." Vrek felt a familiar sense of dread creeping up his spine. Or spines. He had several. "Torgun, have you ever treated a human before?" The medic's eye stalks drooped. "I have read the manual 3 times. Did you know humans can die if their internal temperature shifts by just a few degrees? Or if they consume any of 200 common substances? Or if they experience moderate deceleration without proper support? They are held together by sheer willpower and denial of their own fragility. And yet they volunteer for solo cargo runs through deep space," Mara added, shaking her head. "Earth predators must be absolutely horrifying if this is what they consider normal risk assessment." "I met an Earth predator once," Torgan said quietly. "At a xenobiology conference. It was called a golden retriever. It attempted to lick my eye stalks and knocked over 3 equipment tables with its happiness appendage." "It's what?" "Its tail, sir. Humans keep them as companions. They call them dogs. I had nightmares for weeks." Vrek decided he didn't want to know. He'd never been to Earth, and he intended to keep it that way. He'd seen the documentation. Humans came from a death world where the weather tried to kill you. The local fauna had venom and fangs and claws, and the dominant species decided the best way to survive was to make friends with wolves and teach them to love unconditionally. It was madness. "Plot the jump," he ordered. "And Torgon, prepare the medical bay for a human casualty. If he's still alive, he's probably injured. If he's dead, we need to preserve the body for next of kin notification." "Aye, sir," Mara said, already working the controls. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. Reality folded, twisted, and spat them out 3 kilometers from the Steady Prophet. The cargo vessel hung in space like a broken toy, 1 engine nacelle crumpled, hull plating scarred with impact damage. But Mara was right. The lights were on. Life support was active. "Scanning now," Mara reported, her voice tight. "Still no biosigns. Wait. I'm picking up heat signatures in the main cargo bay. Multiple heat signatures." "How multiple?" A lot multiple, sir." Vrek's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Define a lot." 48 distinct thermal readings, all clustered in the primary cargo area. Silence filled the bridge. Then Torgun spoke up, his voice very small. "The manifest said 1 human crew member." "Yes. So where did the other 47 signatures come from?" That was an excellent question. That was a terrible question. That was exactly the kind of question that showed up right before crew evaluations took a nosedive and therapy bills skyrocketed. "Mara," Vrek said slowly, "what was the classified cargo?" The pilot's feathers went completely flat. "It just says biological specimens, live transport, destination, Sanctuary Station Wildlife Preserve." "What kind of biological specimens?" "It doesn't say, sir. It's classified." Of course it was, because the universe had a sense of humor, and that sense of humor was cruel. "Right," Vrek said, standing up and reaching for his EVA gear. "Mara, You're with me. Torgun, stay here and keep the medical bay ready. We're going over there to see what fresh hell awaits us. Sir, Torgun said, should I prepare the restraint fields? Restraint fields are for containing dangerous organisms, medic. Yes, sir. That's why I'm asking. Vrek looked at the damaged ship floating in the void, at the 48 heat signatures clustered in its cargo bay, and at the complete absence of distress calls or communication from the supposedly lone human crew member. Yes, he said finally. Prepare the restraint fields. Prepare all of them. The airlock of the Steady Prophet opened with a hiss that sounded like a dying wheeze, which Vrek decided was not a great sign. Emergency lighting bathed everything in that special shade of red that screamed, "Things have gone very wrong, and you should leave immediately." Life support is stable, Mara whispered, checking her scanner. Her species had evolved from prey animals, and it showed. Oxygen levels normal, temperature is actually a bit warm, 24 degrees standard. That's human comfort range, Vrek noted, stepping through carefully, his boots magnetized to the deck plating with soft clicks. So, either the humans said it before he died, or he's still alive and we're walking into whatever killed everyone else, Mara finished helpfully. Your optimism is inspiring. They moved through the corridor in silence, passing crew quarters that looked untouched. A half-eaten meal sat on a table in the galley, frozen in time. A datapad lay discarded on the floor. Everything suggested someone had simply stopped what they were doing and vanished. It is deeply unsettling, Mira whispered. Agreed. The cargo bay doors were sealed but not locked. Vrek overrode them manually, and they slid open with a groan of protesting metal. The sound that emerged from within made both rescuers freeze. It was purring. Deep, rumbling, multi-tonal purring that vibrated through the deck plating and into their bones. What in the name of the 7 spiral arms? Vrek breathed. The cargo bay was massive, and it was absolutely destroyed. Cargo containers lay ripped open, their reinforced doors torn outward as if something had punched through from the inside. Claw marks gouged deep into the metal walls. Support struts were bent and mangled. It looked like a war zone. And in the center of it all, surrounded by 47 balls of fur, teeth, and murder, sat a human. He was young, maybe mid-20s in Earth years, with shaggy brown hair and wearing a cargo company jumpsuit that had clearly seen better days. Better weeks, really. It was torn, stained, and looked like it had been used as a chew toy. He was eating a sandwich. Oh, thank God, the human said around a mouthful of food. I was wondering when someone would show up. The communications array got smashed in the crash and I couldn't send a proper distress call. Vrek's brain stuttered to a halt. Around the human, 47 creatures that his pattern recognition software identified as resorling cubs were sleeping, playing, or actively climbing on the human like he was a piece of furniture. One was chewing on his boot. Another was asleep on his head. A third was trying to steal his sandwich. Don't even think about it, Mr. Bitey, the human said, gently pushing the cub's snout away. You already had your lunch. The razorling cub made a sound like grinding metal and settled back down. Vrek's mandibles hung open. Mara made a sound like a kettle boiling. You, Vrek finally managed. You are alive. Yeah? The human looked confused. Did you think I was dead? I mean, the ship's a bit banged up, but I made sure to keep life support running. Why are you looking at me like that? Those are razor links, Mira shrieked, pointing with a trembling wing. Well, yeah, the human said. 47 of them. Want to meet him? This guy here's Captain Fluffmurder. She's actually the sweetest. And that one trying to eat your boot is Mr. Bitey, but don't worry, he's all talk. As you order. All talk. Vrek's voice climbed an octave. Those are apex predator infants. Their parents are known to tear through reinforced hull plating. A pack of adult razorlings once ate an entire survey crew of 32 beings in under 4 minutes. The human blinked. Ha, that's pretty messed up, but these guys are just babies. Babies with teeth that can shear through dirty steel. I mean, yeah, but they don't mean to. They're teething. The human reached over and scritched one of the cubs behind what might have been ears. It was hard to tell with all the spikes. The creature made a sound like a malfunctioning engine and rolled over to expose its belly. Torgun's voice crackled through the comm. Captain, I'm reading elevated stress hormones from both your suits. What's happening? We found the human, Vrek said faintly. Oh, thank the void. Is he injured? He's giving belly rubs to 47 infant razorlings. Silence on the comm. Then, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I thought you said... You heard correctly. The human stood up, and approximately 15 cubs immediately protested the loss of their climbing frame. He was tall for his species, gangly, with the kind of relaxed posture that suggested he was completely unaware of the mortal danger surrounding him. "Look, I know this looks weird," he said, brushing fur and what might have been drool off his jumpsuit. "But it's really not that bad. The crash knocked out the containment fields. The cubs woke up scared, and I just calmed them down until help arrived, which is now. So we're good, right?" "Calmed them down," Vrek repeated slowly. "Yeah, you calmed down 47 razorling cubs. I mean, it took a few hours. They were pretty upset at first." "How?" Mara whispered. "How are you still alive?" The human shrugged. "I pet them. They were scared and crying. Well, making that metal grinding sound, which I guess is crying for them. So I just started petting them until they calmed down. Worked pretty well, actually." Vrek looked at Mara. Mara looked at Vrek. They both looked at the human, who was now preventing two cubs from fighting over what appeared to be a cargo strap by distracting them with a piece of jerky. "That one's Princess Chompsalot," the human said helpfully. "And that's Lieutenant Massacre. They're siblings, so they fight sometimes, but it's all in good fun." "Princess," Vrek said numbly. "Chompsalot." "Yeah, and Mr. Bitey, Captain Fluffmurder, Sergeant Snuggles, Destructor the Adorable." The human kept listing names, while Vrek felt his grip on reality beginning to slip. "I need to sit down," Mara said. "I need to file an incident report," Vrek said. "I need therapy," Torgoon added through the comm. The human just smiled and gave another cub a head pat. The cub, which could have disemboweled a Krillin warrior in its sleep, purred and nuzzled his hand. Humans, Vrek decided, were absolutely insane. And that was before he learned how the human had survived the first few hours. Vrek managed to find a relatively claw-mark-free section of bulkhead to lean against, while his worldview crumbled into dust. Mara had given up entirely and was sitting on an overturned cargo crate, hyperventilating into a paper bag the human had helpfully provided. "So," Vrek said, watching a razorling cub try to eat his bootlaces, while the human gently redirected it toward a chew toy. "Walk me through this, from the beginning." "Sure," the human said cheerfully. He pushed a particularly aggressive cub named Destroyer of Worlds away from Mira with his foot. The cub squeaked and went to chew on a piece of debris instead. "So I was doing my standard route run, right? Cargo pickup from the breeding facility on Kepler 42b, delivery to Sanctuary Station, easy milk run. I've done it like 6 times. "You've transported infant razorlings 6 times, Vrek said flatly. "Yeah? It's good money, and they're usually in cryostasis, so it's pretty boring, actually. But this time we hit some kind of debris field. Knocked out the main engine, sent us spinning. I managed to get us stable, but the impact knocked out the containment field generators for the cargo area." The human said this like it was a minor inconvenience, like a coffee machine breaking, and not a catastrophic, life-threatening emergency. "The cubs woke up?" Vrek prompted. "Oh man, yeah, that was loud. You ever heard a razorling cub cry? It's like, imagine taking an industrial metal grinder and shoving it into a distortion amplifier, and there were 47 of them all screaming at once. I thought my eardrums were going to liquefy." "So you went into the cargo bay?" "Well, yeah, I had to. They were terrified." "They were terrified," Mara wheezed into her paper bag. "The murder beasts were terrified." "I mean, put yourself in their position," the human said reasonably. "They go to sleep in a nice warm container, then they wake up to explosions and alarms and everything's shaking. Their mom isn't there. They don't know where they are. Of course they're scared." Vrek pinched the bridge of his snout with 2 hands. "Most species would have sealed the cargo bay and waited for rescue." "And let them cry? For like 6 hours? That's messed up, dude. More messed up than getting eaten?" The human laughed. "They weren't going to eat me. They're babies. They don't even know how to hunt yet. They were just scared and bitey." "Just bitey," Vrek repeated. "These creatures have jaws that can crush a glorp's skull." "Yeah, but they don't know that," the human said, scratching another cub behind its ear spikes. "They're like, what, 6 weeks old? 8 weeks? They're basically toddlers with knives for teeth." Mara made a sound like dying wind instrument. "So you went into the cargo bay," Vrek said, trying to get the timeline clear in his head for the incident report that would probably get him institutionalized. "And then what?" "Well, they were all climbing over each other trying to get out of the containers. A couple of them were fighting. Most were just crying, so I did what my sister does when her kids freak out. Which was, I sat down and made myself look non-threatening. spoke in a calm voice. "Let them come to me." Vrek stared. "You let them approach you?" "Yeah. I mean, running would have triggered their chase instinct, right? And I'm not faster than a razorling, even a baby one. So I just sat down and waited. And they didn't attack you." "Oh no, they totally attacked me," the human said casually, rolling up his sleeve to show a lattice of scratches, bite marks, and bruises. "See? This one's from Princess Chomsalot when she thought my arm was food. This one's from when Mr. Bitey tried to establish dominance. This one's from Sergeant Snuggles, who is actually the meanest one. Don't let the name fool you." Torgun's voice came through the comm, high-pitched and frantic. "Those wounds should have been fatal. Human blood loss tolerances are incredibly low. You should be dead." "Nah, they're just scratches," the human said. "I've gotten worse from my sister's cat. I slapped some anti-bac gel on them and wrapped them up. No big deal." "No big deal," Vrek said, his voice very calm in the way that suggested internal screaming. "You were mauled by apex predator infants and you used a first aid kit." "Well, yeah, what else was I going to use?" Vrek had no answer for that. No one had an answer for that. Somewhere in the universe, a philosopher was having a crisis and didn't know why. "Okay," Vrek said. "So they attacked you, and then?" "And then I booped the most aggressive one on the nose." Silence. Complete, total silence, except for the purring of 47 apex predators. "You booped it," Mara whispered. "Ah, you know?" The human demonstrated on Mr. Bitey, gently tapping the cub's snout with one finger. "Boop! It's a dominance thing. Shows you're not scared. Works on dogs and cats." "These are not dogs and cats." "I mean, kinda they are. They're pack predators. They respond to social hierarchy. They're smart enough to understand tone and body language. So I just treated them like really dangerous puppies." "Really dangerous puppies," Vrek repeated. "Uh-huh. After I booped a few of them, they kind of calmed down and started sniffing me, so I pet them. And they loved that. Like they started purring and climbing on me. It was actually pretty cute." "Cute," Mara said faintly. He said cute. "Then they got hungry," the human continued, "which was a problem because I only had like 3 days worth of their food pellets and no idea when rescue would arrive, so I had to ration it." "How do you ration food for 47 predators?" Vrek asked, morbidly fascinated now. "Carefully. I set up feeding times. Made them wait. If they tried to steal food or fight, no food. If they behaved, they got extra treats. Basic positive reinforcement." "You trained them?" "I mean, sort of. They're smart. They figured it out pretty quick. Except Mr. Bitey. He's kinda slow, but he's got heart." Mr. Bitey, hearing his name, trotted over and headbutted the human's leg. The human ruffled the fur between his ear spikes. The cub made a sound like a broken disposal unit, which Vrek realized was contentment. "What about sleep?" Vrek asked. "Did you sleep?" "Yeah, they nap a lot, actually. I set up a schedule. Nap time at 900, 1400, and 1900. They complained at first, but once I established the routine, they were fine." "You gave 47 razorling cubs a nap schedule." "Well, yeah, otherwise they get cranky. And trust me, you don't want 47 cranky babies with murder teeth, so nap time was non-negotiable." Vrek looked at this human, this impossible, insane human who had survived 6 hours alone with infant apex predators by treating them like misbehaving toddlers, who had been mauled and called it scratches, who had established feeding schedules and nap time routines for creatures whose parents were classified as Class 5 extreme threat organisms. "What's your name?" Vrek asked quietly. "Jake. Jake Murphy. I'm a cargo hauler. Been doing this for like 3 years." "Jake Murphy," Vrek said. "I'm going to be very honest with you. What you did should have been impossible. You should be dead at least 47 times over." Jake shrugged. "Yeah, but I'm not." "Well?" Mira asked, her voice barely audible. "How are you not dead?" Jake thought about it, absently scratching Captain Fluffmurder's belly while she writhed in apparent ecstasy. "I don't know. I guess I'm just good with animals? I was in veterinary school before this, but I failed out. Too much science stuff, not enough hands-on work. But I was always good at the practical parts. Reading behavior, keeping them calm, that kind of thing." "You failed out of veterinary school," Vrek said. "Yeah, organic chemistry kicked my ass, but hey, the animal handling part, that I can do." Vrek looked at the cargo bay full of contentedly purring death machines, at the human who had accidentally become their pack leader through sheer oblivious confidence, and at his own career in rescue operations that would never be the same after this. "Torgun," he said into his comm. Update the incident report. To what, sir? Humans are no longer classified as fragile. Then what should I classify them as? Vrek watched Jake prevent two cubs from fighting by giving them both stern looks and timeout corners. Terrifying, he said. Classify them as absolutely terrifying. Right, Vrek said, pulling himself together with visible effort. We need to transport all of you back to the Steadfast Mercy, and then on to Sanctuary Station. Do you have a containment solution for the cubs? Jake looked around at the destroyed cargo bay, at the twisted remains of the containment pods, and then back at Vrek. I mean, not anymore. That's kind of the whole problem. So how do you propose we safely transport 47 Razorling cubs across open space to my vessel? Can't you just extend a docking tube or whatever? The cargo bay airlock is damaged. We'd have to EVA transfer them. Jake scratched his chin. Okay, so we'll just carry them. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that occurs when someone suggests something so monumentally stupid that reality itself needs a moment to process. Carry them, Vrek said. Yeah. You want to carry 47 Razorling cubs through zero gravity across open space? I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds hard. Because it is hard. It's not hard, it's impossible. Each cub weighs approximately 40 kilograms. That's nearly 2,000 kilograms of predator. Okay, so we make a few trips. Mara laughed. It was the kind of laugh that suggested her grip on sanity had finally snapped. A few trips, he says, a few trips. I fail to see the problem, Jake said, and Vrek realized with dawning horror that he genuinely didn't see the problem. The human looked at 47 creatures that could tear him apart and saw a logistical challenge, not mortal danger. The problem, Vrek said slowly, is that Razorlings do not like being handled by strangers. They're extremely territorial and bond with specific caregivers. Which means they'll only let me carry them, Jake finished. Yeah, I figured that. They don't really like you guys. As if to demonstrate, Mr. Bitey spotted Mara moving slightly and immediately hissed, placing himself between her and Jake. The sound was like an angle grinder eating sheet metal. See, Jake said. They're protective. It's actually kind of sweet. Sweet, Mara whispered. Sweet. I'm going to die here. Let me test something, Vrek said, reaching very slowly toward the nearest cub, a relatively small one named Destructor the Adorable. The cub's lips pulled back to reveal teeth that had no business being that sharp. A low growl built in its throat. Yeah, don't do that, Jake said. They don't know you. You've got to build trust first. We don't have time to build trust. This vessel is barely spaceworthy and could lose life support at any moment. It's been fine for 6 hours. That's not the point. Jake sighed like Vrek was being unreasonable. Okay, look, how about this? I'll carry them over in groups. You guys just stay back and I'll ferry them across. How long's the distance? 40 meters, Mara said faintly. Easy. I can do that. In zero gravity, Vrek added. I've done EVA transfers before. While carrying 40 kilograms of muscle, claws, and teeth that might panic in zero-G and disembowel you? I mean, there's a first time for everything. Vrek looked at Torgon's camera feed from the ship. The medic's eye stalks were drooping in what was definitely despair. Captain, I must advise against this course of action. The human could be injured, or killed, or floating off into space with a Razorling cub eating his face. You got a better idea? Jake asked reasonably. And that was the problem. They didn't. The containment pods were destroyed. Tranquilizers strong enough to sedate a Razorling cub would kill a human, and the dosage for the cubs would require Torgon to calculate for 47 different body weights while dealing with species physiology he barely understood. Plus, sedating them would just make them heavier dead weight. Fine, Vrek said, the word tasting like defeat. But we're doing this methodically. I want safety tethers on everything. You, the cubs, probably my career after I file this report. That's the spirit, Jake said cheerfully. 30 minutes later, they were attempting the most insane rescue operation in galactic rescue history. Jake had suited up in an EVA suit that barely fit humans apparently came in inconvenient sizes, and was attempting to wrangle the first group of cubs. Okay guys, listen up, Jake said in that same calm voice he'd been using. We're going on a little trip. It's going to be weird and floaty, but I need you to stay calm and hold on to me. Can you do that? The 5 cubs in the first group, Mr. Bitey, Captain Fluffmurder, Princess Chompsalot, Sergeant Snuggles, and Lieutenant Massacre stared at him with eyes that reflected the emergency lighting like tiny demonic mirrors. "I'm going to take that as a yes," Jake said, attaching safety tethers to his suit. "All right, come here, you little nightmares." What followed was a bizarre ballet of human determination and predator confusion. Jake somehow managed to convince all 5 cubs to cling to his Eve suit, 2 on his back, 1 on each arm, and Mr. Bitey clinging to his helmet like the world's most dangerous hat. "This is fine," Jake said, his voice slightly strained through the comm. "This is totally fine. I can't see anything, but this is fine." "You can't see?" Vrek shouted. "Mr. Batty is blocking my helmet visor, but it's cool, just talk me through it." Mara made a sound like a dying engine. "Left, go left, slowly, slowly." Jake pushed off from the airlock, drifting across the void between vessels with 47,000 credits worth of endangered apex predator cubs clinging to him like fuzzy missiles. The cubs were not happy about zero gravity. They made sounds that ranged from confused chirps to panicked grinding noises. "Tcha, it's okay, babies," Jake cooed, somehow maintaining his composure while blind and surrounded by claws in the vacuum of space. "We're almost there. You're being so brave." 3 meters, Mara guided. 2 meters. 1 meter. Reach forward. Jake's gloved hand found the airlock edge. Torgun was waiting inside, pressed as far back against the wall as his slug body could manage, which wasn't very far. "Welcome aboard," Torgun squeaked. "Please don't let them eat me." Jake pulled himself and his cargo of chaos into the airlock. The cubs immediately started exploring, sniffing everything, trying to eat the control panel. "No, Sergeant Snuggles, that's not food," Jake said, gently pulling the cub away from the circuitry. "Torgun, you got something to distract them with." "I have medical supplies and fear." "How about that blanket, the thermal one?" Torgun tossed over a thermal blanket. Jake spread it on the floor and somehow convinced all 5 cubs to sit on it. They looked confused but compliant. "Good babies," Jake said. "Stay here, I'll be right back." "You're going back?" Torgun asked. "Well, yeah, there's still 42 more." And he did. 9 times. 9 times Jake Murphy crossed the void between ships, each time with a different group of cubs clinging to him in increasingly creative configurations. By trip 4, he'd figured out that singing to them kept them calmer. By trip 7, he'd developed a technique he called the baby burrito, where he wrapped them in cargo netting. By trip 9, Vrek had given up trying to understand humans entirely. The final trip, Jake brought over the last 3 cubs and himself. He pulled off his helmet, looking slightly disheveled, but utterly unbothered by the fact that he'd just done something that would go down in rescue operation history as either the bravest or stupidest thing ever recorded. 47 razorling cubs were now piled in the cargo hold of the Steadfast Mercy, sleeping in a massive purring heap with Jake Murphy sitting in the middle like some kind of apex predator king. "Torgun," Vrek said quietly, "scan the human." "Already did, sir. Multiple lacerations, 2 shallow puncture wounds, extensive bruising, elevated heart rate, and what appears to be a strain in his lower back." "Jake," Vrek said, "you're injured." "Yeah, I think I pulled something on trip 6, Jake admitted, "but it's not that bad." "Not that bad," Vrek repeated. "You're bleeding. Just a little. You transported 47 apex predator cubs across open space while injured. I mean, I wasn't going to leave them behind. They're my responsibility." And there it was, the thing that made humans simultaneously the most admirable and most frustrating species in the galaxy. They adopted responsibility like other species adopted breathing. They looked at impossible situations and said, "Yeah, okay, I'll figure it out." Breck sat down heavily in his command chair. "Set course for Sanctuary Station," he said, "and someone get the human a pain suppressant." "Already on it, sir," Torgun said. "Also," Vrek added, "start drafting my resignation. After I file this report, they're either going to promote me or commit me." Jake just smiled, scratched Mr. Bitey behind the ears, and closed his eyes. It was going to be a very long trip to Sanctuary Station. The trip to Sanctuary Station should have taken 4 hours. It took 7. Not because of navigation problems or engine trouble, but because 47 razorling cubs apparently got bored easily, and a bored razorling cub was a destructive razorling cub. Vrek discovered this when an alarm started blaring 2 hours into the journey. "What now?" he groaned, checking his console. "Minor hull breach in Cargo Bay 3, Mara reported, her feathers standing straight up. "Wait, no, not a breach. Something is chewing on the internal access panel." "Of course they are," Vrek muttered. heading toward the cargo hold. Why would they not chew on vital ship systems? He found Jake already handling the situation. 3 cubs, Destructor the Adorable, Princess Chompsalot, and one named Tiny Terror, were indeed trying to eat the access panel. Jake was gently pulling them away one by one and redirecting them toward what appeared to be cargo straps tied in elaborate knots. "Sorry about that," Jake called out. "They're understimulated. In the wild, cubs would be exploring and playing for like 12 hours a day. Being cooped up makes them antsy." "So you're giving them enrichment activities," Vrek said flatly. "Yeah, watch this." Jake held up a cargo strap and wiggled it. Instantly, 6 cubs pounced on it, grabbing it with their teeth and pulling. Jake held on, engaging in what appeared to be the galaxy's most dangerous game of tug-of-war. "See? Burns energy, builds muscle coordination, establishes social bonds. The strap is rated to secure half-ton cargo containers." "Yeah, they're pretty strong," Jake grunted, actually being pulled forward by the combined might of 6 infant predators. "Come on, guys. I know you can pull harder than that." The cubs did. Jake's feet slid across the deck plating. "Do you need assistance?" Vrek asked, watching in horrified fascination. "Nah, I got it. They're just playing. Oh, except watch out for Lieutenant Massacre, she's a sneaky one." "What do you mean, sneaky?" Lieutenant Massacre dropped from an overhead pipe directly onto Vrek's head. The Krillian screamed. It was not a dignified sound. The cub, startled by the scream, jumped off and scurried back to Jake, making apologetic chirping noises. "See? She's an ambush predator in training," Jake said, scooping up the cub and giving her a gentle shake. "But we don't ambush the nice rescue people, do we? No, we don't. They're friends." Lieutenant Massacre did not look convinced, but settled into Jake's arms anyway. "How," Vrek said, his voice shaking slightly, "do you stay so calm?" Jake shrugged. "I don't know. I guess I've just always been good at reading animal body language. Like, Lieutenant Massacre wasn't trying to attack you, she was playing. You can tell by the ear position and the way her tail was swishing. If she was actually aggressive, her spines would be fully extended and she'd be hissing. Those are very subtle distinctions when something is landing on your head. You get used to it." From the bridge, Torgun's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, the humans file just came through from the employment database. I think you need to see this." Vrek excused himself, leaving Jake to supervise what appeared to be a makeshift obstacle course he'd built using cargo containers. Back on the bridge, Torgun had Jake's employment record pulled up on screen. "Jake Murphy," Torgun read. "Age 26, Earth Standard. Previous employment includes veterinary clinic assistant, animal shelter volunteer, dog walker, and briefly, wildlife rehabilitation intern." "He worked with animals," Mara said from her pilot station. "That's not even the interesting part," Torgun continued. "Look at his education. He attended Colorado State University veterinary program for 3 years before dropping out." "He mentioned that," Vrek said. "He said he wasn't good at the science." "Right, but look at his practical evaluation scores. Animal handling, 98%. Behavioral assessment, 96%. Crisis management with aggressive animals, 100%. Torgun's eye stalks swiveled to look at Vrek. He scored perfect on crisis management with aggressive animals. "So what you're telling me," Vrek said slowly, "is that we just watched a human who is literally trained, even if incompletely, in handling dangerous animals, successfully handle dangerous animals." "Yes, sir. And this surprises us. Why?" "Because he failed out of the program." Torgun pulled up another screen. "His academic scores were terrible. He failed organic chemistry twice, barely passed xenobiology. And his dissertation on cellular respiration was rejected for being, and I quote, factually creative but scientifically unsound." Mara started laughing. "He's smart with animals but dumb with books." "He's not dumb," Vrek corrected. "He's specialized. There's a difference. Some beings are better at practical application than theory." A crash echoed from the cargo hold, followed by Jake's voice saying something like, "No, Mr. Bitey, that's not how we play fetch." "Very practical," Torgun muttered. Vrek made a decision. "Mara, how long until we reach Sanctuary Station?" 2 hours, give or take." "Good. I'm going to check on our passenger. Torgun, start drafting a message to the Sanctuary Station director. I have a feeling they're going to want to talk to Mr. Murphy." Back in the cargo hold, Vrek found a scene of organized chaos. Jake had somehow convinced about 20 of the cubs to play a game that looked like tag mixed with wrestling. Another group was sleeping in a pile near the environmental controls, which Jake had wisely covered with protective plating. The remaining cubs were scattered around, chewing on approved chew toys that Jake had apparently fabricated from spare parts. "Hey," Jake said, noticing Vrek. "Everything okay?" "I wanted to ask you something," Vrek said, carefully stepping over Sergeant Snuggles, who was gnawing on what used to be a maintenance tool. "Why did you drop out of veterinary school?" Jake's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "Why does it matter?" "Humor me." Jake was quiet for a moment, absently petting Captain Fluffmurder. "I loved working with animals. Like, genuinely loved it. But the program was so focused on the science, memorizing chemical compounds, understanding cellular processes, all that stuff. And I tried, I really did, but my brain just doesn't work that way. I can look at an animal and tell you what it's feeling, what it needs, how to approach it. But ask me to explain the biochemical process of how adrenaline works and I'd blank. So you chose cargo hauling. It paid well, and I got to transport animals sometimes. Figured it was close enough." He smiled sadly. "My professors said I had a gift with animals, but that a gift wasn't enough. You needed the knowledge, too. So I left." Vrek watched as Mr. Bitey trotted over and headbutted Jake's leg affectionately. Watched as Princess Chompsalot rolled over for belly rubs without being asked. Watched as 47 apex predator cubs treated this human like he was the safest thing in the universe. "Your professors," Vrek said carefully, "were idiots." Jake blinked. "What?" "You survived 6 hours alone with 47 razorling cubs. You kept them fed, calm, and safe using nothing but instinct and improvisation. You transported them across hard vacuum while injured. You've spent the last 2 hours keeping them entertained on my ship using cargo straps and spare parts." Vrek gestured at the peaceful, playful scene around them. "What you have isn't just a gift, Jake Murphy. It's a talent, a rare one. I just treat them like they're scared kids who happen to have teeth." "Exactly. You see past the danger to the need. That's not something that can be taught from a textbook." Jake looked down at the cub in his lap, scratching behind its ear spikes. "Thanks," he said quietly. "That actually means a lot." An alarm chimed softly. Mara's voice came through the comm. "Captain, we're approaching Sanctuary Station. They're hailing us." "Patch them through," Vrek said, then looked at Jake. "Get ready, Mr. Murphy. Something tells me your cargo hauling days are about to end." "What do you mean?" Vrek smiled, an expression that looked terrifying on Acrylian but was meant to be reassuring. "You're about to get a much better job offer." Jake looked confused but nodded. Around him, 47 razorling cubs sensed the change in mood and began stirring, looking to their accidental pack leader for guidance. "It's okay, guys," Jake said softly. "We're almost home." And somehow, impossibly, they believed him.